This is Good Girl Gone Human, an ongoing conversation that serves the frequency of rehumanization. We believe that in striving towards being good and away from being bad, we can lose touch with our humanity and uniqueness. Our hope is that in expanding our capacity to accept our own humanity, we expand the capacity to accept and hold each other's humanity as well.
We welcome uncertainty and questions with curiosity. This is not a roadmap for the right way to be human. We hold tenderly how seductive and human it is to reach for a formula that will provide a sense of certainty and safety. This is not that place, but rather a place for dropping into our big, messy questions.
This isn't just for the recovering good girls out there, but for every human who desires to peel off the layers that hide the wholeness of who they are.
We want to tell the stories of how messy and complicated and beautiful it is to find ourselves in the aftermath of this shedding. There is space for your story, and we want you to join us on this journey of rehumanization. Hi, humans. Hi, Holly.
Hi.
Welcome back to another episode of Good Girl Gone Human. We are so happy to have you back. We have loved seeing who's listening, and we just had this moment the other day like, oh my gosh, we have listeners.
It's weird
because we recorded a few of these before we even launched, and so we were talking to kind of the void, and now we have some names and some at least Instagram handles and things of people who are listening, and so we're so grateful. I just want to say we're really grateful for the people who are listening.
I agree.
It feels really special, and today feels really special because we have a guest today, but the guest is Holly Collins, co-host of Good Girl Gone Human, and we're going to kind of highlight something that's really important to her today and something that she's been a student of and learning a lot about. And I'm excited for this episode because there's something about our friendship that's really cool, which is that we've both learned a lot from each other, but in particular, we have these little gifts and passions that we have that we've shared with each other. So Holly came to my women's circles. That's our reconnection. We had an episode on that. And she's kind of learned things from me in that arena. And Holly has brought something to my life that she knows a lot about and she's passionate about, but also it's become a language and a tool that we've used in our friendship, in our partnership as co-hosts, and that is human design. So today, we get to learn a little bit more about what it is on a high level, but also how it fits into our conversation of Good Girl Gone Human and rehumanizing ourselves and all of the big themes of this podcast. And so it might feel like a lot of information is coming at you if you don't know anything about human design, but we also know that you could just Google human design and learn about it if you wanted to. What I'm excited about today is for you guys to hear this from Holly's perspective because it's unique and she has so much to offer in this space. So I'm really excited, Holly. Thank you. Thank you for bringing this to us today.
Thank you. Yes, I'm really excited, a little nervous. This is something I've been playing with and using in my life since it came to me in December 2019. So about 5 years now. And wow, it's been like quite a journey of just taking on a whole new tool after leaving Christianity was like kind of a big thing. And so that is a lot of what I want to touch on is after losing your entire belief system, like the way that I've held myself in the face of finding a new one I resonate with, which has been human design. And I wouldn't call human design a belief system or religion, and we'll get into some of that later. But it's just felt important on this whole journey of creating this podcast to bring human design here. But this, even though like I aspire to be a human design professional, like probably a human design coach someday, I didn't want this to be a human design podcast. I actually, I did a human design circle because I was inspired by your circles. And in prepping for our episode here, I found that document. And that was a long time ago before doing a podcast was even on my radar. And I felt so just a sense of satisfaction and connection to myself when I read what I wrote there, because I said in the prep for the women that were coming to this circle, I wrote to say to them, I want to bring you this lens, this tool, but I don't really want to connect over the knowledge, like all this flood of knowledge. Like you said, you might hear a lot of words coming at you. I want to connect over the human condition and use this tool as a way to connect with compassion to ourselves and each other. So anyway, when I read that, I was like, this has been my vision for years before I even knew it would take the shape of a podcast, before I even knew if I wanted to do human design readings, because like I said, in the complexity of leaving a religion and then picking up human design, sometimes I'm like, I spit it back out. I'm like, I don't need this. I just want to live. I don't want to be controlled by a system. There's a lot here, isn't there? But I just feel like a lot of gratitude to be bringing it here with you, because I do believe it has a lot to offer people. But I also feel very, very protective of whatever humans I share it with. I do not want to hand anyone a system that says, this is who you are. So that's my hope today, that I can explain it a little bit, that I don't overwhelm anyone. This isn't Human Design 101. This won't be your one-stop shop for learning everything. But yeah, I'm hoping we can unpack it a bit and even contemplate on in a more zoomed out way. Like, why would we use any sort of system, and how do we hold on to our humanity within that?
If this isn't the only system that you would find yourself doing this with, you can look at the way this conversation unfolds and apply it to the system of your choice. And so to get started, can you tell us, what is human design?
Human design is a tool for building self-awareness. And the way in which it helps us build self-awareness is it is a blueprint of the energies that you uniquely hold. There's something called a body graph, which I'll get to in a moment, but it shows you the unique archetypes and energies that you have consistent access to, that you came into this world to hold, to put out into the world and share with the world. You could find your gifts there. You could find your weaknesses there. There's a lot to it. But what human design is, and how it even became a tool for self-awareness, is it's a synthesis of a handful of different systems. Some ancient systems, like we have the Hindu chakra system, we have astrology, we have the Chinese I Ching, we have the Kabbalah tree of life, and there's also quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and some other stuff that we don't need to get into. Genetics, biochemistry. It's like a melting pot of a bunch of different things. And there's a very interesting origin story, which we don't need to get into now, but I do want to bring up the origin story because if you look it up, it's really kind of weird. A guy channeled this, but the way I hold the system is, okay, some guy channeled this in 1987. That's new. This is a baby system,
Totally,
right?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's a synthesis of ancient systems that have been utilized for the very same purposes that I find myself using human design today. And I actually love the mystery of that. Like, maybe it's woo-woo to some. It definitely is weird, but I like being weird and unconventional. So there you go. But I feel like its roots are really important to look at, these ancient systems and really kind of show appreciation to them. I hope someday to dig into each individual system and kind of get a feel for it more. But anyway, to zoom back out to human design, it is a synthesis of those systems, and the way a chart is generated, the way that you can get your unique blueprint, energetic blueprint, is similar to astrology. You plug in your birth information. So anyone that doesn't know astrology, there's way better ways to talk about this than I'm going to be able to. But in short, it's based on the premise that we are affected. Everything is energy. We're energy. The planets are energy. And we're affected by neutrinos, which have mass, we found through science. But it's funny when I say science, I'm like, I am not the person to come to explain the sciencey parts. But I do like to throw out there, hey, there's like really interesting, really deep explanations of all this. That's not the purpose of our conversation here. But the point is that we are affected by the energies around us, by each other. We all hold different energies, by the planets. That's the premise. So similar to astrology, you plug in your birth time and your birth location, and it generates a human design body graph. And it's going to be a little tricky if you're not seeing the body graph to kind of know what I'm saying, but we'll try to keep it simple here for anyone that doesn't want to look it up or like is driving and can't look. I'll try to keep it simple, but we also will put in the show notes and on our social media and probably like an image on YouTube, what a body graph looks like. But simply put, there is some shapes and some lines. So there is like some squares and diamonds and triangles. So just picture that. I actually kind of like the idea of somebody not seeing it and like imagining it and then looking and seeing how close they were later. That's fun. So if you do that, let me know, because that's weirdly interesting to me. And all of these shapes are connected by lines which are called channels. So they're all connected to each other, and each shape is called a center. Each center, this is where you get the chakras for anyone. I don't know if I'm saying that word correctly, but for anyone that knows that system, the human design centers are based on that. So a little example for anyone that's like, what the hell is she talking about? There's one called the heart center. It's also, another name is the will. There's an identity center. There's the spleen center, which is like intuition and health. There's the solar plexus, which is emotions. There's the sacral center, which is like life force. So like fertility and like literally and creation wise. There's the head and the ajna. Ajna is the mind. There's the root center. It has to do with like adrenaline and like pressure to do and to get things done. So as you could see, without like getting into the nitty gritty of each center, they hold specific energies. And the most important thing to know is the body graph, the way that I would say it, is it represents humanity. We all have access to all of it. If you do look at what a chart looks like, you'll see, like, in addition to the shapes and channels that I mentioned, there's a bunch of numbers. Some are colored in, some are not colored in. This system goes really deep. So just know, like, there are very defined, very specific, you can go way down the rabbit hole of highly, highly descriptive energies at play here. And we all have access to all of it. Sometimes we experience an energy inconsistently because somebody else has it consistently, and we get to take that in and we get to enjoy it, or we get to feel smothered by it or whatever. And we're doing that to other people as well. So that's like the body graph. The reason each individual has a unique body graph is the planets define means colored in. So these shapes, it's really funny to try to explain on a podcast where some people might not be looking at it. But if you are looking at it, you'll notice some is white and not colored in, and some has different colors, various colors. Don't worry about the colors. Colors don't matter so much in this conversation. But if you have, when you pull up your unique chart, whatever you have colored in is your unique imprint of energy that you, the human, embody. You carry it. It is, sometimes I like to, this idea didn't originate from me, but I can't remember who I heard this from. So if anyone listening knows, my human design peeps. But I really like whoever said, it's your privilege. The colored in areas are your privilege. It's what you have consistent access to, and you are putting out that energy. So anything that you don't have colored in is where you're taking in energy. So anywhere you have it colored in, you're putting out energy. And those are the themes that you'll see in your life. Those are the gifts. And sometimes you can have like a thwarted expression of them. It's not just, these are just the sunshiny parts. So we can all use our privilege or who we are to harm. But where you don't have it colored in, it's undefined. That's where you take in other people's energy. And so you get to taste those energies and experience those energies during your time on earth as a human, but it's inconsistent. This is where I find myself getting really excited about human design. Oftentimes, we all want what we don't have, right? So when we are taking in energy, there's like a pressure to be that, to feel like we need that. So, or to get totally overwhelmed by it. And that's where we can start being who we're not. So the human design system, that's the way it looks like. That's the way it flows. You'll notice if you have a colored in shape, which is a center, that means you have a colored in channel that leads to another center. So those channels, when they're defined or colored in, they always link to another center. So it's your unique flow of energy. So we can get into types and all this stuff, which is probably when you first Google human design, you see that there's 4 or 5 types, depending on, debated, but there's 4 like main types. Whatever is colored in your chart determines what type you are. Now the types are a way to organize the information and make it easier to talk about, because as you could see, I'm being really long-winded and trying to describe this flow of energy and how it works for each person. So we have manifestors, generators, projectors, and reflectors. And we won't get into what each of those are, but each of those types have different centers defined. And so whatever you have colored in determines what type you are. The whole point is to become self-aware of who you uniquely came here to be. My favorite experience of the human design system, and my favorite, like when I've shared it with people, is people feel like they have permission to be themselves. Because like I said, we feel this pressure to be what we're not. We feel conditioned. Human design talks a lot about conditioning. So there's a lot of ways that as humans we could be conditioned away from who we uniquely are. In the human design system, there's a lot of ways to talk about that as well, but a lot of times it's through the openness, through the white areas of your chart where you're taking in other people's energy, and believing that it's your own and trying to like hang on to it and be something that you're not. So the invitation of the human design system, you can forget, if what I said was just overwhelming, feel free to forget all of that. This is the point. It's so brave to be like, I am who I am and I'm not who I'm not. And feel the permission to differentiate from another person. Because when we're in a group, we're all conditioning each other. There's a lot of energy going on. Some people express their energy in a way that is helpful and uplifting and inspiring. And sometimes we all, like we talk about no good, bad, right, or wrong. I mean, some people have a hard time with that language. And that's our larger Good Girl Gone Human conversation. But there's just the whole spectrum in these energies that are named in human design. There's the whole spectrum of like expressing it in a way that's harming you, expressing it in a way that's helping you. So there's all of that to play with here. But the point is to look at the chart, look at yourself through the lens of human design, is to say, wow, I came here to be me. Where am I being me? Where am I trying to be somebody else? And why? That's what I mean by self-awareness. oh, I always thought I had to prove myself in order to receive love. Your human design chart could show you where you might be susceptible to trying to prove yourself, trying to gain love, trying to prove that you know, trying to prove you're certain, trying to bulldoze your way to keep working, keep going, when really you're designed to rest and not keep pumping out productivity or whatever. So there's, as you could see, there's so many beautiful ways that this could go. So when you look at a chart and you see how the unique energy flows, it's really an invitation, almost like a mirror to be like, okay, if this is true, which I want to say, human design doesn't require you believe it. It's meant to be an experiment. So experiment with looking at yourself through this lens. I love talking about it as a lens. Lately, I've been talking about it as like a microscope, because sometimes, like I say lens, like my glasses, right? I wear those all the time. I don't want to wear human design all the time. A microscope feels more intentional, like, oof, I'm feeling stuck, or I'm feeling like I want to see myself a little clearly. So getting out the human design microscope, if you will, and taking a look at like, how can this show me maybe where I am trying to prove myself, where I'm trying to be like everyone else, where maybe in my childhood I picked up from somebody I was around all the time that like, in order to be loved, in order to be successful, in order to be whatever, you have to act in this certain way. And human design helps you put down some of that conditioning. It's not usually very fun and it's not very easy, but it's an attempt to describe who you came here to be and to hold loosely the system as well. Like, as you can imagine, this can be used very dogmatically. Sometimes I'll get really triggered because it sounds like in human design, we talk about the not self. So when you're being who you're not, it's the not self. And I'm like, it always triggers me because it reminds me of sin. It's like you're sinning. You need to repent. You're being your not self. You need to decondition. And so that whole big explanation, like, to ground it into, okay, why are we bringing it to this podcast? Well, I have learned to use human design in a way where I'm not giving it my power. I'm reminding that I'm the one that holds the power. Mm-hmm. I would be fine without human design. I do think it's mysteriously accurate. I do think it's fun. I do think it's like exciting and helpful. And I love that, like, there's some people who've told me it's really helped them when I shared it. But it is really easy to use it as like, I found the new way, guys. Yeah. And I don't want to be a human design evangelist. Yeah. I want to be pro-human. Yeah. And sometimes as humans, we feel lost and we need a tool. Yeah. So there's so much I forgot.
No, I mean, I'm hearing it, with our listeners. It is, we said, it's a lot of information. It's like taking a drink from the fire hose. But there is this sense I'm getting of how you're explaining it, where it's like, it is just a tool. Is it mysterious? Are there these things? We've had so much fun. We are clearly personality test girlies. We love, we've talked about the Enneagram a lot, astrology, all these things come up. We like to look at ourselves and have a system, and it's fun. My thought for you is, did you find this post leaving church, or were you exposed to it while you were still in your faith system?
Yeah, it was after.
Okay.
I had left church and was in this void space, in this liminal space. And I remember that liminal space feeling really scary, but really fertile. That was the point where I learned to let go of certainty. So
then you find the system. Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking through that, like, if you had found it when you still had your belief system really intact, I wonder how you would have interacted with it. But
I would have been like, this is from the devil.
Totally. Finding it in the void is so important in this conversation, because I want to hear about your journey with it. I'm sure the temptation at the beginning was like certainty and being very dogmatic about it. So can you tell us a little bit about how you interacted with it at the beginning, what that feeling was like for you? Because I've experienced sitting in that circle with you, for example, or having readings about my chart. And it is this like, oh, yes, like there I am. Weird. You're almost, I can get a little skeptical. Like, I don't want to find myself in this body chart. I just want it to be like not true. And then you look and you're like, oh my gosh, nope, that's it. That's me. So
That checks.
what
That
was
adds
that
up.
feeling of finding this in the void? How did you interact with it at that beginning? And then take us to how you interact with it now. Cause I know it's very different than probably how you first found it in that void of that liminal space of uncertainty. How did you grasp onto it and interact with it at the beginning?
Yeah.
Let's start there.
That's a really good question. And I think my answer will help me kind of unpack some of the things I forgot to mention about the system. So, but how I found it at the beginning was, I was really obsessed with the Enneagram. I was like, really just, that's all I ever thought about. And there was somebody that I followed on Instagram that was doing both human design and Enneagram. And I was like, what is this? And I looked at my chart and I felt like I was on fire. I was like, this is the thing. This is everything. So it was in that void space, looking back, it was like this relief of, obviously this wasn't a conscious thought, but is this my new like rock to stand on? That liminal void is so uncomfortable. So of course, finding something that's so deeply resonant that I felt seen in a way I hadn't. I felt like everything I had went through made sense. Where human design talks about authority figures, it talks about how we outsource our power to authority. And the point of using your human design chart is to get really intimate with your inner authority, your innate wisdom, your body's wisdom. The point of human design is to get out of your mind and into your body. And there's many like different ways depending on what unique energies you have in your chart, what's colored in and what's not. There's different flavors of inner authority. And like if you look up your chart or get a reading, it will lay it out very specifically of what your inner authority is. But therein lies kind of the problem, is this is very much a mental framework. This is a fire hose of information that's saying, it's literally so funny. It's like, hey, stop using your mind.
Yeah. But
here's more. You could learn
more words, more information, more charts. It feels very heady. So actually, when you just said the point is to get out of your head and into your body, I'm like,
bullshit.
But before you can get out of your head, you have to get like really fucking in there to like to learn all this stuff. Yeah. Like it's so intense. Okay, so for an example, just like to humanize it, what is your inner authority on your chart?
Love it. Okay, this is probably why I latched onto it so much, is I have sacral authority.
Okay. That's one of the shapes.
Yep. So it's a square that's second from the bottom.
Okay.
And anyone that has their sacral center defined is like the sacral it's a motor is what it's called. So it has this life force energy to when it is in response to something that it wants, it has endless energy to do that thing. And it always leads to satisfaction. So those people that have, like, even think about it. I was talking to our mutual friend about this because she also has her sacral defined. The sacral center is like fertility, sex, life force energy, creation. And so my inner authority is literally like listen for where, or feel into where life's turning me on. That's not how everyone describes it, but it's helpful because the idea and the invitation of getting to know your authority, and like I'm glad you asked what mine was, because it makes a little bit like we can sink our teeth in a little more, is I lived my whole life thinking that I was selfish and sinful and I shouldn't be trusted. So now here comes human design saying, no, you're meant to listen to your gut. You're meant to listen to your body coming alive and do those things. That also means when your body is saying no, listening to that too. So my body's saying no to Christianity. Like my last days of like Christianity, I couldn't like get out of bed. I couldn't move. I had all these questions. I didn't know. My body was literally like, this isn't for you.
Yeah.
And excuse me. So that is kind of how it works, is like, okay, I build a relationship with, oh, just trust your inner authority. But therein lies another problem, which is we're conditioned to not to. So the whole point of it being an experiment is, okay, I'm going to feel into this gut response. It's for someone who has a sacral defined or colored in. It's always something outside of you, like in the world, like that's being magnetized to you to respond to. So a big part of having the sacral authority is waiting and not initiating, not trying to get in there and decide with your mind what you should do and then hustle till you get it. You're going to burn out all that beautiful, juicy life force energy. By the way, 70% of the population has this defined. So I'm probably speaking to a lot of people that like you have that similarity to my chart. But you will run out. Like when I first heard that I was like a really energetic type that has this life force, I was like, bullshit. I'm so fatigued. I'm so exhausted. But that became the invitation, right? Why? Well, I literally do not know myself. I think that I am a terrible person that can't be trusted. And I hate myself. And like the way that like the specific brand of Christianity that was the air I breathed my whole life is why I thought all those things about myself.
Totally.
And so human design, of course, I'm latching onto it, that they're saying you actually can know yourself. It's not selfish to know yourself. You actually can trust yourself, and not your mind saying, I should do this program and I should become a doctor and I should blah, 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 blah. And it's like, actually wait and see what makes you come alive. Wait. Ooh, somebody said this and my whole body like, ooh, shrunk and said no. Crap. Now I have to tell them no. Now I have to, it goes into so many like healing things.
Responsibility.
Take responsibility.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
People pleasing, all of this stuff. So it really is an invitation. My favorite way to describe human design is there's this flow that I see. Like, it's not like guaranteed. If you follow your inner authority, this will happen to you. But you hold your awareness. You belong to you. You have the power. Human design is a tool for awareness, but it's not the awareness. You are. And so when somebody gets themselves to a reading, I like that you asked me, like, how did you first pick it up? Because we talk about in human design that it's actually your not self that gets you to a human design reading. And why is that? Because you think there's something I'm lacking that I don't have in me that I need. And I need, maybe if I just had a reading. Maybe if I just, literally, this is where you insert whatever system, insert whatever diet protocol, insert whatever work, like insert whatever.
Yeah.
If I just went to therapy, if I just, whatever. It's so easy to outsource your power to the human design system. And as I'm training to do readings. I'm not like there yet, but I'm so passionate about presenting it in a way that's like, I know people are going to come to me with this feeling of lack, with this feeling of mistrust. Mm-hmm. And my only job, literally, one, I have the knowledge of human design, but my more fun and what lights my sacral up is my job is to give you back your power constantly. The entire reading, the entire coaching relationship. Like, let's use this tool together, but let me remind you, you are the one that got yourself here. You are the one that's curious. There's so many people that do not want to become self-aware. They do not want to look at themselves. They do not want to build self-trust, because then you have to take responsibility. They want to outsource trust to someone outside of themselves, like, believe and you will be saved. Mm-hmm. So the way that I see human design is it is an invitation to build self-knowledge. First, you just observe. The whole point is to just observe. And sometimes it's tricky because you're like, no, there's all these human design things to learn. And that's why I haven't done readings yet. Because I'm like, I don't want to sit with someone for an hour and be like, here's a bunch of knowledge. Now go be all up in your head about it. So anyway, I believe that if you build knowledge of self and you hold it loosely, when you look at your chart, you're like, okay, this is my unique flow of energy. This is where I take in others' energy. These are some of the prominent energies in my chart. I do or don't see my gifts in there. I see where I'm susceptible to wanting to prove myself, whatever. That's where, like, you begin to build self-knowledge. There becomes a deeper awareness when you just observe it. Okay, cool. Now I know my type. Now I know how my energy flows. Now I just live my life and I observe. Oh, wow, that was true. Oh, I did that. Oh, I actually didn't listen to my gut response, or I didn't listen to my emotions. I didn't collect enough emotional data before making that decision. And this is what happened. Okay, that's not good or bad. I don't need to be like, I sinned and now I must repent. But wow, actually, I wonder what would have happened if I would have. So there's the self-awareness, right? Mm-hmm. As you build that self-awareness, I've seen it time and time again. It naturally, but slowly, sometimes painfully and messily, builds self-trust. Mm-hmm. Because when you see, oh, I'm designed to operate in a certain way, and you experiment with it, and you say, I'm responsible for it, and you become aware of your patterns, and you choose to be for you and choose to advocate for who you uniquely are and how you move through the world, and you say no to people and projects that you really want to, and you say yes to your dreams and to the people you want to, it's inevitable that self-trust grows. Oh, wow, maybe actually I can be trusted with my life, with why I came here. And a human design teacher, her name is Karen Curry Parker. I think that was her that said this. If it was someone else, sorry. But it wasn't me. It's like sometimes we can get really obsessed with finding our purpose. And so part of me wanted to, just now I caught myself wanting to say, you build self-trust because you start to like find your purpose. Like, know what you are, your purpose. That's what self-trust does is, oh, I'm here to be me. If I'm here to be me, well, what do I want to do? All of a sudden it opens and you have choice. And the way that it flows from there is building self-trust leads to self-love. So that's the way that I see it, is like this self-knowledge, this learning to be the observer, observing yourself, building an awareness of your patterns through this tool, through using the human design chart and human design knowledge, that it builds trust with yourself and your own system, and then it leads to self-love. I can be trusted. I came here on purpose. I am my purpose, and I could show up as me. And also no shame if I show up not as me because I'm scared. That's great data too. Then what do? We talk all the other things we pulled onto this podcast. Belonging. We reach out for community. I feel really scared of being myself, and it doesn't feel safe in these ways, and I want to share that with someone. Also, sometimes our not self is just something to observe and like partner with. Mm-hmm. Oh, of course I people please there. I don't feel safe with that person.
Yeah.
So smart little not self, but okay, how do I tune back in? Because my self-trust is a little rattled because I took on their energy and I kind of betrayed myself. It's just really an invitation to observe yourself and get to know yourself. That's it. Not like you will be okay if you like get this knowledge.
I see the temptation for being formulaic, it's like, as you dive into this, I am like pre-novice, but I know things just from talking to you. And I'm like, I see how you could get so rigid about this. I'm sure you see that in the human design community, all the different ways people interact with it. The temptation towards being formulaic, the temptation towards being like, well, I'm an emotional authority, so I cannot, like, sometimes life is a little more gray and like flowy than that, right? I also see, as you're talking, how tempting or comforting it would have been to take this system and be that way about it, because it is spoon feeding you the things that you needed to hear, the opposite of what you were hearing. We were hearing literally our heart, like, do not lean on your own understanding.
Yeah.
I
Literal Bible verse.
My mouth is agape if you're watching YouTube. Sometimes I just read that verse, do not lean on your own understanding. And I'm like, what? That's all I have in this whole life. So anyway, you're coming from that, and then you're being told your understanding of self is your greatest gift. It's your superpower. It's your tool. So I love the invitation to, you could go so nitty gritty with this if you're being like lit up and excited, if this is turning you on, however you worded it. It's like you could go so deep. You could study this for years. You could get to know yourself in this way. And also you could observe if that's just becoming a new dogma, right? But the gift of self-awareness is so beautiful, and I don't want to skip over that. You said there are a lot of people who don't want to know themselves in this way. And what I've seen in you, and how, because I've learned this from you, this system, that word experiment has always been the thread. So when I first learned about it, I might have asked you a question. Okay, if this is true, if this is what's on my chart, how should I approach this? What should I do? Or, and you'd always give the invitation to just observe, but also, what if you experimented with trying it the way that would work with your chart? And it was fun to take that data in, and it was fun because I also have been an Enneagram enthusiast or evangelist, maybe even at some point. And, my ex-husband and I would say all the time that the Enneagram was a tool that helped us in our marriage more than anything else, because we had this language. It was shared language. Both of us knew it. So in the Enneagram world, there's like a number you go to in health and unhealth. And we could be like, ooh, I know the numbers that you go to in unhealth, and I'm seeing all of that. And then we had a way to communicate with each other. Hey, I'm seeing you acting a lot like a 6 right now, or whatever the thing is. And it gave us this shared language. So I think human design, if you're married, is a cool opportunity for shared language and friendship. I just think there's like an invitation for everyone who's listening to maybe even just scratch the surface of it and play with it if they want, or do what we were talking about at the beginning and say, okay, is there a system where I am being a little dogmatic about it? And how can I use it as a tool for self-awareness and loosen my grip on these things,
Yes, I love that you said shared language and brought that into it, because that's really all it is. But to me. So here's like the beauty of me. Like, I was so nervous to come talk about this because I know there's people that could talk about it better, that know more, whatever. But I wanted my voice on it because I hold it in the way that I hold it. And it's all like so mysterious to me. And I hold that as so sacred, because maybe this was channeled by a dude during this time in human history, because humans really need this right now and we should listen to it. Like, maybe that's true. There are some people that use it that way, and as long as they're not using it to harm others or control others, go for it. I find myself like picking it up and putting it down and picking it up and putting it down because of my background. It's so easy for me to reach for that certainty, like, believe this and you'll be saved, and then I don't have to think about anything else. And the tension I want to hold with human design is, ooh, this gave me language for something that doesn't have language. It's it's a felt sense. It's like my experience of being in the world. And now I can use this language and sometimes put it down. And if I use it with friends that, or in marriage or whatever, that does give us that common ground. But it's like everyone that uses human design, it's like, use it in your unique, differentiated way. The way that I hold clients, future clients, will be different than the way that like someone I was in class with did. And that is so important to protect. There's also going to be people listening that like, you know, if you don't know human design, you don't like know the language of your inner authority. Like take a body scan right now of like, how are you reacting to this? Is this even a tool you want to pick up? Because this isn't something that's going to save you. You're going to do that. Mm-hmm. You're going to be the one that shows up for yourself, for your community. You're going to be the one to examine your patterns. This will give you language for it, but it's not the only language for it. Mm-hmm. And so I have to protect my own heart from it sometimes. Like, this isn't something that if I just study hard enough, I will never betray myself. I'll always love myself. Right. Like, no.
Yeah. No, because that's just not going to happen because we are human, you know? I mean, that's the point, is that I love that you pick it up and put it down, and, you know, that you can play with it, even as someone who knows so much about it. I love the thing that's sitting with me the most is that language microscope versus lens, that seeing it through a lens is like, it's too much to take in because there is so much information. And to go, okay, when do I want to like look at myself in that microscope and take that deeper look? Maybe it's a time when you're feeling like your patterns aren't serving you, or you feel like you are coming into that moment right before the human design moment, maybe, where you were saying people are feeling like something is not serving them, something is not working. If you find yourself in that tension, you can kind of look around and say, okay, there are gifts. We've talked about the Enneagram. We've talked about human design. There are people who feel like this about astrology and a million trillion other systems. The point is not that a system will save us, right? I love that. Mm-hmm. You will save you.
Yeah.
But can we do it in community? Can we find language that will broaden our understanding of ourselves and bring us back to self-trust and bring us back to ourselves? Is so beautiful. I love the arc of this conversation because, you know, at the beginning, it's just like, how do we go here? Because it is so deep. But as we settle in, I feel this call to just self-awareness, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you aren't even interested in being self-aware, yeah, obviously you're not going to pick up human design, you know?
Probably not going to listen to our podcast.
Probably not going to listen to our podcast either. So, okay.
So if you're still here, we're talking to you.
If you are interested in self-awareness, to gain self-trust, to move through the world in a more authentic way and find more authentic belonging. And yeah, there is that temptation towards purpose. But if the purpose is to show up to my life wholeheartedly and self-aware, so that I can do less harm, hopefully, to other people and myself, and I can break habits or patterns that have been in my family or my family of origin or my culture, there's such a gift there in the offering of the self-awareness that it can bring.
That's beautiful. And one thing I'd add to that as we're kind of wrapping up here is, I love that you said, okay, so if it's a microscope, when might I pick it up? And I love everything you said, and I'd follow it up with, okay, so when do we put it down? That's also an invitation for self-awareness. And you feel this like tightness, like I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll book another reading. And maybe none of that's wrong. But even that, reaching for a tool, reaching for human design, I'm going to check what's going on in the sky right now. Just like take a pause and be like, what's going on in my body right now? Because am I just really, really scared? I need to call a friend.
Right.
Or do I need it's like there's no wrong answer, but like there's wisdom in knowing when to put the tools down. And that's like eventually like how I want to share human design is like hold the whole human in a session where we're using this tool together, but always advocate for them advocating for themselves and them keeping their power and not thinking, oh, I need my coach, or I need my, with also, we do sometimes need people. I needed this tool. So there's also that where it's not like, oh, I didn't need it, whatever. Like, I think it came to me because I was meant to learn it and I did need it. And that's
been a gift to you.
It's been a gift
to you and your community. And you're keeping the human, you're centering the human, not the system.
Yes.
And so that human-centered human design, you know,
yes,
is not probably the first way that people might interact with it, because it is so much information, and it is easy to center the system.
Yeah.
So
yes,
I love your call of just always back. Yeah. When do I need to pick it up? When do I need to put it down? You know, we always hear, I mean, at least on our Instagrams, when like Mercury is in retrograde, and then suddenly that's like the reason everything is wrong. And you have to be like, hold on, maybe you're having a bad day because you're, you know, something else.
And I gotta say, sometimes I'll have days where I need a fucking reason because uncertainty is too scary. And so I'm like, oh, it feels relieving to blame it on Mercury because I needed to just soothe myself.
Blame the moon.
Okay.
Blame the moon. I love that. I love the freedom and the grace to just use the tools. Use the tools that we have when we need them. Put them down when we don't want to go there. Yeah. It's really great.
Yeah. So what I would say for anyone listening that made it all the way to the end and is interested in human design, here's what I suggest. There's a million chart generators. Some of them are attached to people's websites, and they will pull up the basics of your chart. Just know that it's going to be a lot of like info, and you're going to be like, what do I do with this info? So here's my invitation to you. When you pull up your chart, first, just look at the body graph without reading the words. And like take a deep breath into your belly and just look at it. Just observe it. Just notice where your eyes are drawn to. Notice what's colored in and what's white. And just be with yourself and then read. And then as you're reading, check in. Check in with your body, because you had already taken that moment to like breathe and like set the intention that this isn't going to save me, but oh wow, maybe I will connect with myself. Like that kind of like curious spirit of this is to connect with myself. How cool that this tool came into the world. And then read about it or book a reading. Sometimes it's so nice to just be held by another person. But just be aware it's going to be an info dump and you might get in your mind. So when you do get in your mind about it, contemplate. That word contemplate kind of cuts through. Like read it all and then like put it all down and contemplate. What would happen if I listened to my authority? Looking back at my life, like, I am a manifester and it always felt like I should live like a generator. Whoa, I need to just kind of like love on the part of me that felt like I had to be that way. There's just so much here. And yeah, so just like take it slow. And if, you know, I love nerding out about this stuff, so I'm around.
Yes. And yeah, we can put some resources in the episode notes and things too. But I'm so grateful. Thank you, Holly, for bringing this. I love the nitty gritty of human design just because I'm your friend and I love learning about it. And I love the broader conversation around how we can hold systems, how we can interact with tools, and ultimately come back to ourselves. So I'm so grateful for this conversation, and I'm grateful for the people who come along and listen to it and just find themselves in the desire to understand themselves and to find these resources. And so thank you. Thank you so much. I know it was a lot to try to synthesize all that you know so much. It's so deep and it's such a well of information. It's so dense. I love the playing with both sides, the deep information and the broader conversation. And so thank you for bringing just your knowledge and your perspective on this. I think it matters and is so helpful as we interact with any tool to look at it this way that you've held this. And so thank you for bringing that to us.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing your curiosity and helping like pull it all out of me. And thank you, humans, for listening and, just thinking, being so immersed in like thinking about human design right here in this moment. And just thinking about how that just impulse to reach for a tool because we want to get better and how human it is. And so I want to invite you to slow your breath and remember that you are the whole spectrum. You are an absolute badass and the most fragile thing. Treat yourself as both. We love you. Thanks.